Hi, I'm Donnie Thorson. I'm a certified hand therapist and overhead athlete specialist. All I treat is shoulder to fingertip. That's all I do, that's all I see, that's all I live, breathe, eat, all that good stuff. So I'm here today to share some information about the rotator cuff. Who here is brave enough to guess what a rotator cuff is? Do you have any idea?
Is that in your knee?
It's in your arm.
It's in your arm.
Or
I like
shoulder.
it. Yeah, good. Even more specific. I love it. So you've heard of it before, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. That's fine. We're gonna learn a lot about it today. Okay. Before we get started in like the specifics, I want a little bit of background so we're all just oriented. Do you know you have things called tendons in your body and you have things called ligaments in your body? Do you know what the difference between those two are?
One connects to bone, one connects to the other one.
My God, he can read. No, that's great. It's exactly right. So ligaments connect bone to bone. What does that mean? It means they are a lot more rigid. It's a bad thing when they stretch. They're not supposed to stretch. They don't really stretch. They kind of partially tear and then they snap. So you've heard of like your ACL ligament, right? Not very, keeps your knee stable when you run, jump, cut, things of that nature. You really don't want that to tear or become too loose. Tendon actually is the part where that connects muscle to bone, and it does two things that a ligament can't. One, it's more flexible, right? It gives us a little bit more leeway. We can stretch my hamstring. I can just make my hamstring more flexible to reduce the risk of injury, and I'm able to control it. I can fire my hamstring to allow it to be stronger or prevent injury. I can't fire a ligament. The ligament just is kind of what God gave you, okay? So when you look at the bony structure of the shoulder, you really look at this, nothing's holding the shoulder on. It like would just fall off, right? There's no ridge or anything that like holds it on. And we can do a lot with our shoulders. So I can reach behind my head like this, which is awesome, and you can reach all the way above your back, which is awesome. It's a lot of motion, a lot of availability for movement. And that's because the ligaments that support this thing, they only go from like here to like here. They don't wrap all the way around because otherwise you wouldn't be able to move your shoulder. We'd be living life like T-Rexes, right? Can't have that. And so what your shoulder relies on to give it stability when you reach behind your head, throw a ball, reach behind your back, all those different things, is 4 separate muscles that start on the shoulder blade. From the back, 1, 2, 3, and on the front, this actually rests against your rib cage. It's called your subscapularis. They're tiny muscles that you can see. They actually wrap around the outside, so it allows you to get stability. Your arm's not going to fall out of socket, literally. There's diagnosis that happens when people have a stroke, where this muscle stops working, and what happens is the arm literally like starts dropping, like out of socket. Do I have my laser pointer? The laser pointer has died. It was a good run. And anyway, so we're going to cover the forward muscles individually, and we're going to learn a couple exercises. That's the most important part, right? I want you to know some things when you leave here today that can kind of help you keep your shoulder healthy throughout. One is your supraspinatus. We talk a lot about this in rehab because although this is a young demographic, obviously we see older patients in a rehab facility, and 50% of people above the age of 50 have a tear in the supraspinatus. Over half of people are going to tear this specific tendon. So we care a lot about it. One of the reasons that happens is you can see this kind of bony ridge right here, right? And you can see how the tendon goes, through that. I want you to feel the back, that little bone part. It's called your spine or your scapula. And then I want you to go forward a little bit so it goes rigid and it's like that soft and squishy, right? That's your supraspinatus muscle. And then you're going to go out and you see like, oh, I feel that ridge here. They call that your acromion. So go a little bit further out. You see like right here. I love that. And then go right here and you're like, oh, it's squishy again. That's your supraspinatus tendon. So every single time you raise your arm above 80 degrees, you end up pushing and pressing on that tendon right there. So that's what happens. So there's some things we can do to prevent that from happening so violently that it causes tear later. And that's a lot of what this presentation's about. So one of the things we can do is we talk about thumbs up if overhead. If rotate my arm to put my thumb down and then I go overhead, every single time I'm pressing that tendon up against that ridge. You can't deny it, it's going to happen every time. But if I go thumbs up above 80 degrees, I actually increase that space by 1.5 centimeters. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a very small space and allows us to protect that. So when we talk about exercising this muscle, anytime you raise your arm, especially below 90 degrees, you work your supraspinatus, okay? Once you get above 90 degrees, it's a lot more about deltoid, which is why, you guys in the weight room, they want boulder for shoulders, they're doing a lot of overhead presses. That's fine, nothing wrong with that, but they need to equally be strong between your rotator cuff and your deltoid, because this deltoid comes over the top and pulls your shoulder up like that. And this pulls it a little bit more across. There's actually another tendon that pulls it down like this. So these two are working the same ratio as the deltoid. What happens is it spins, which is nice and pretty, and keeps it away from the roof. But if your deltoid is a lot stronger, what happens is it just pulls up and pushes into the roof. So when we talk about ways of strengthening your abductors, or the ability for you to raise your arm out to the side, we want to emphasize on your supraspinatus. So lucky for you, you get to be a volunteer.
Yeah.
Go ahead and come on up. So we'll talk about two different exercises. The first one, I want you to face that way. And what you're going to do is you're going to put this in your hand, and then you're going to step on it. Good, easy. And you're going to be either out to the side, so stay stepping on it. Perfect, good stuff. And we're going to go up to here. Now, as long as your thumb is up, you can go as high as you want. No problem with that. You're going to be very healthy with that. It's not going to be an issue.
Okay.
But if you want to, say you want to make that tighter because that looked pretty easy, we'll make it a little tight. We'll wrap it around a couple times, right? Let's go palm down. And you can go palm down as long as you stop at 90 degrees. So bring it to my hand, right? That's a perfectly fine way to go. And if you want to go above, once you get to my hand, now turn it up. Perfect. Exactly right. Don't do that. That's so funny. I'm so sorry. It's actually never happened before, but that's fine. Yeah, there we go.
So I have to bend.
That's great. Wow, sorry about that. So the two planes you want to work is out to the side, and then you want to also work like this 45 degree here. You'll see people do with a dumbbell 10 this way, 10 this way, and then 10 out to the side. That's a perfect way to work it. Challenges in different ways. If you do everything straight forward, you'll get too much pack in the anterior deltoid. You need to also work out to the side. It's basically the way we kind of work and protect our supraspinatus. Do you have any questions over that?
No.
Cool. Next is your infraspinatus. Your infraspinatus rotates your arm externally, or externally rotates, so that's this motion right here. One of the things you talk about, muscle fibers, they kind of go in this diagonal plane, right? When you think about what a muscle does, when it contracts, it actually shortens. So do your bicep, okay? You can be okay, that's kind of long, right? And then what happens when you go like this? Balls up in your hand, it gets shorter, right? So when you contract this muscle, it actually pulls the humeral head down and back like that. And what that does is it increases the space to protect your supraspinatus tendon and make sure all the muscles of the shoulder are working more equally. If one muscle is doing too much work, that puts you at risk for injury, right? So how do we strengthen this thing? Promise nobody will get hit in the face this time. But I'm happy you guys can come up. And what I'm going to have you do, we'll do this one first. Just want you to hold the band. Go ahead and face the camera and do kind of this thing, right like that, okay? Perfect, just like that. Good. And yellow is the lightest band.
Good.
Good. You feel that in the back in your shoulder?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's great. Your infraspinatus specifically works there, but then it also works, and actually works more so in this 45 degrees. So we do the same exercise up like that.
Like that?
Yeah, kind of. So keep your elbow here, so relax. Bring it here. Keep this elbow here, bring the back of your hand to my hand. There we go. Feel that a little bit more?
Yeah.
Perfect. So there's a way to do it there, but then a lot of gyms have cables, so I'm going to be your cable. Go ahead and hand me that. And then I'm going to have you with your left arm. Good, go down, and then I want you to be almost in that W position, up like this, okay? Kinda. More like that. So, and then to my hand right here. Okay, there we go. That looks great. That's what I want. So what you're doing now is you're whipping that arm, and then you're extending that elbow. Keep the elbow bent, bring it to my hand. There we go, slow back. Perfect, doesn't have to be quite that slow, but that's the idea. That's what we're looking for. So you take the cable, you go ahead and do that. That's really, really important because that controls the rate at which it lengthens. So what does that mean? It means that when you throw a ball as hard as you possibly can, there's this great study where they just measured like physics of force and like just pretended that those muscles in the back of your shoulder weren't there. Your arm would rotate, give or take, about 20 times around, every single time. If the back of your shoulder, that infraspinatus muscle, doesn't slow the rate in which that comes down. So what happens is, if it's too strong, when you go to throw, hard as you can, it just pops. And then that's no good, right? And then you get the pop in your shoulder, you need surgery, all those different things. But if that muscle's strong, it's able to control the rate in which it lengthens, you're not gonna have that. The easiest way to kind of compare that is if I do a 25-pound dumbbell, I can control the weight that lengthens, right? But if somebody threw me 150 pounds and I tried to catch it like that, there's a good chance that's gonna, fall down and pop, right? Now, there are ways, and this is why it's beneficial that the rotator cuff are muscles versus ligaments, because I can strengthen that bicep to where maybe, I'm sure there's like NFL linemen, if you throw them 150 pounds, it's no problem, right? I can get myself strong enough to reduce that risk of injury. And that's what we want to do when we do the bands and we do the exercises we're going to show you. It promotes just health when you do those really high velocity motions. So the next one is your subscapularis. This is my personal favorite. Weird to have a favorite rotator cuff muscle, but nonetheless. So the subscapularis, it's not talked about a lot, yet dysfunction of this leads to a lot of issues, especially with athletes, because it keeps things stable when you do specific motions. What do I mean by that? Have you ever heard of electromyographical study?
No.
No, weird, right? And so what that is, they stick electrodes on muscle, and if I do a 5-pound curl, it's not gonna, there's not a whole lot of electricity. I do a 50-pound curl, there's gonna be a lot of electricity, right? So they stuck a bunch of electrodes on different muscles of the rotator cuff and found out which exercises caused them to work the hardest. Oddly enough, the hardest the subscapularis worked was just when somebody was pulling behind them, like this, okay? What does that mean? This muscle doesn't even do that action. This muscle actually does that action. It means it's always working the hardest to prevent your shoulder from popping out of socket backwards. This is the only muscle that's really, really, really responsible for that. The other thing is, I don't know how many sports you play, what sports you play. You ever had your arm up like this and somebody hit it? The only thing that kept it in socket was that subscapularis pulling you back in like that. So strengthening this is actually really difficult because there are two things that this muscle does that other muscles don't. Number one, back behind your back, lift off like this. But nobody's gonna do that at the gym. You know what I mean? Like do a back, like you're like a 10-pound dumbbell, you're laying on your stomach doing that, right? It's not a very functional activity. We want the muscle to work in the positions the arm would be in when you're participating in sports. So again, I'm gonna have you stand up and we're gonna demonstrate a couple things. So number one, I want you to grab a handful of this, put your arm up like this, face the camera, bring that arm down, good, just like that, and bring it up slow. Good, slow, controlled. If you do 50 of these, but they're really fast, it's like, that's great. The other thing I'm gonna notice is, as you do that elbow started to sink. So keep it high the whole time, exactly, just like that. And then the other way of doing it is, you already were starting to do it. You can do it, you're kind of like, just like this, right? So right there, and then, yeah, exactly, just like that. So if you have cables, you have a partner, you can even wrap this around like a dumbbell weight, rack or something like that. That way you can kind of get this muscle strong. The key is, if you do a lot of strengthening here, like you do like a chest fly, anything below shoulder level is going to be more chest. Well, the chest is already really strong, right? So when you bring it above 90 degrees, it isolates that subscapularis muscle. Does that make sense? Perfect. Thank you so much. You'll have one more demonstration. I appreciate it. Last is your Teres Minor. Okay, Teres Minor, it's not often injured, but it's very, very important if you throw anything. You throw a ball, or you hit a volleyball, you throw a baseball, anything like that. This muscle works the most going back like this when the arm's above 90. So we talked about how if you didn't have the muscles in the back of your shoulder, when you threw a ball, it would rotate. It's that infraspinatus, but more it's this Teres Minor muscle, okay? So it protects subscapularis, protects everything when you're doing those things. And the other thing, fun fact, you wouldn't be able to change a light bulb very well without this muscle. So when you're up this, it was responsible for kind of that twisting motion like that. So the exercises I'd love for you to learn for this one They're extremely similar. I'll have you again go up and demonstrate. Like the first one is just like this. Just real light, real simple. Let's give that a try.
Down here, I guess.
Yep, I'm gonna have you right here. And then so you're at 90 and then up. Yep, perfect. Just like that. Good stuff. That feel okay?
Yep.
Perfect. And then the key there, because it's so easy to do it fast, and it's so easy to let your elbow sink, is to keep it at 90 and go up like that. And then the other way, and again, I will be, thank you for demonstrating for the camera, it's natural, right? The other way, here we'll do it with your left arm. Just grab this, face this way. Good, bring your arm to that 90-90 position, and then go up. That's the other one.
Okay.
So you notice a theme for Teres Minor and subscap? You don't just catch and do stuff out to the side, but you don't just catch and do stuff forward. You want them to work in the forward position and the outside position, so it simulates all the things you're doing.
Okay.
And then you can mix it up a little bit. Like when my patients are doing this in the clinic, that's yours. You can take note.
Oh, yeah.
What I'm doing is I'm shaking the band, or I'm telling them to do like, okay, just do 20 like this, and then do 20 like that, but don't let it go all the way back down. And kind of mix and matching and playing with that, so it's not as boring, and it's actually better for the muscle as well. So, to review, your shoulder joint relies on 4 muscles for stability. What do you call that?
The rotator cuff.
Hot darn, he is just fantastic, right? He's teachable. So, Supraspinatus, Infraspinatus, subscapularis, and Teres Minor. I don't even care if you guys remember the names of the muscles. I just want you to know a few exercises to help keep them strong. Because they prevent injury by controlling the rate in which they lengthen. It's called an eccentric contraction, which ligaments really can't do. Which is why if you do your rotator cuff exercises, and you do them slow and controlled, you're going to get stronger, right? Maybe now I catch that 150 pounds, my bicep doesn't snap, or you throw the ball 90 miles an hour, your shoulder doesn't snap because that muscle is stronger. It's awesome. We have the ability to do that, just by doing some band exercises 3 to 4 times a week. It's kind of neat. Your rotator cuff is always working every single time you reach. You ever done a tournament that lasted like 3 days? Yeah, tired afterward, right? So every single time you reach, the rotator cuff's moving. Every single time you play a game, volleyball, baseball, that rotator cuff's working. So you need the endurance to be high. These are not big muscles. Have you ever heard the difference between fast twitch and slow twitch?
Yes.
These are very slow twitch. These are not the fast motion. These are slow, controlled. Sets of 15, sets of 12, sets of 20. That's all good. I'd rather you do lightweight and high reps. So at the end of the tournament, your rotator cuff's like, I'm good, I trained for this. I'm ready for this right now. What questions does anybody have for me? All right, well, thank you so much.
If I'm having pain in my shoulder,
Yeah.
what are some things that I can do at home on my own?
I would try some of these exercises, and if they cause you pain, I would do a free screening with Cody in the training room, or I would do a free screening at Athletic Physical Therapy. You just need your parent signature, and it's literally free, and we'll take a doctor of physical therapy to look at you for about 15-20 minutes and identify what's going on. Start with the exercises, because you already know them, and if that's not working or if it makes it any worse, go see a professional. All right, thanks guys.